I've already dealt with Cenk, but every host of the Young Turks has a few problems of their own, to include a man named John Idarola. If you weren't already aware, there's a hashtag floating around Twitter called #WhoIsBurningBlackChurches. Now, there's a lot of stupid there, to be sure. First of all, they start off the question by asking who, implying that it is necessarily a person or people setting these churches on fire, deliberately. It could very well be a what that's burning those specific predominantly black churches down, but whats don't stir up outrage. There's no one to blame in the event of a what, unless a whose negligence caused the what, or something to that effect. Anyway, I'll be responding to John's video regarding this topic. The Young Turks made a video about this as well. However, it says a lot of the same things, and my arguments and retorts can be tossed in their direction as well. Take it away, John.
While the country and liberals have been rightfully celebrating a good couple of days in which the Confederate flag has been taken down from multiple state houses...
Here we go again. I'd like to point out that lots of liberals are also pissed off about the decision, because if you cook up enough faux outrage, you can pretty much get anything banned at this point, no matter if the majority of the population is fine with it or not. Enough people screaming racism can get you pretty much anything. The same logic would apply to the Confederate flag as it would to the American flag, considering the American flag flew over a whole bunch of oppression. Then people will say, oh, it's not the same because it stands for other things too. And yeah, isn't that the point I was trying to make? This fictional person and I agree on logical terms, but this fictional person just doesn't seem to like the Confederate flag, but does like the US flag a whole lot. That's the only difference there. If we ban one, why not ban the other? We have two choices in this case to avoid hypocrisy. We can ban everything that has a hint of bad history behind it, or we can just let it all be, and the public can decide what they would like to do, democratic process and free speech and all. This isn't to say that I support the Confederate flag or fly it proudly. I was completely indifferent to it until this whole fiasco broke out. But thanks for explaining to us that some liberals are jumping for joy over the fact that they are essentially saying, let us decide what will represent you over your own objections, and let us decide which symbols you may fly, or else you're making us feel bad and oppressing us. It is a vindictive game. If you don't do what we order, then you're a bad person. If you don't let us decide what you may see for yourself, then you are morally deficient. Shoot this Jewish person in the back of the head. You wouldn't want to be supporting the downfall of Germany, would you?
Obamacare has been upheld by the Supreme Court, and gay marriage has been legalized across America. A wave of black church-related terror has swept through the South.
Aha! A string of terror attacks. I assume that they captured the culprit, or culprits, and have extracted their motives from them through interrogation and investigation. Right?
Multiple churches, somewhere between 4 and 10 churches, have already been burned down. Now, federal authorities are saying they can't actually prove that there's any link between them yet, but I'm going to give you the details, and I'm going to point out exactly why it doesn't matter if there is a link.
It doesn't matter if there's a link? It definitely does matter if there's a link. That would mean there's an organization of some sort perpetrating this, and that would warrant looking into, don't you think? Now, I noticed in your statements you said, been burned down, and that has a slight implication, at least to me, that you insist they were set deliberately by people. That would be indicative of the title of your video, which I remind you is Terrorists Burn Down Black Churches Across South. You sound awfully certain that this is the case, John.
It is horrible all the same. Now, this information is culled from a number of different sources, including BuzzFeed, Raw Story, the New York Times, the AP.
Alright, fine. Those two I can reluctantly accept. For now.
Now, they are doing a good job in discussing this. For some reason, cable news, the mainstream news, they don't seem to want to talk about this.
You know, it's a very tired tactic to say, oh my god, why is nobody covering this, just to have an air of superiority over another person or another news organization. I notice it a lot on social media. Someone posts an article where all of the facts aren't confirmed yet and says, why is nobody talking about this? Nobody's talking about it because everything has already been said that can be said about it. Some predominantly black churches burned down in the South. Who did it? We don't know what the cause is yet. Oh, okay. That's the extent of the fucking conversation that can be had. Everything else is speculation. You should be saying, why is nobody speculating about the cause of these fires and coming to the same conclusion that I am? Why aren't the mainstream media jumping to conclusions like me? Seriously, John. MSNBC did a segment on these fires, and don't worry, they said similar things. You can relax now.
I understand there's been big news, but this is terror. This is a wave of terrorist attack against black churches in the wake of an extremely deadly attack against a black church less than 2 weeks ago. This should be front page news. I don't understand why it's not.
It is front page news. I can't stop hearing from everyone, to include news outlets, how much nobody's talking about this. MSNBC covered it, CNN covered it. To CNN's credit, there was actually an article that decried assuming everything is racist by default, which was incredible. I know, right? In fact, there were around 1,600 church fires in 2011. This is the last year we have comprehensive data on, to my knowledge, but it's all I've got. It decreased rapidly and remained stagnant around that area since 2007. Cooking equipment made up the majority of the causes of fire, followed by heating equipment, then intentionally being set, then lighting and electrical equipment, and lightning trailed behind them. Hate crimes were not the majority of the motives, however. It was mostly vandalism, burglary cover-ups, and insurance fraud. Also, the percentage of predominantly black churches targeted in those? 16%. Now, with that being said, let me list off a couple of causes of the recent fires. Friday, June 26, Greater Miracle Temple Apostolic Holiness Church in Tallahassee, Florida. After investigation, it appears a tree limb fell on an electrical line and sparked the fire. Tuesday, June 23rd, Fruitland Church in Gibson County, Tennessee. After investigation, was determined to have been caused by lightning. Terror! We have no motive for the other fires that actually are being investigated as arson, but yeah, it's terror. I know it's terror because I think it is. I believe it. It is therefore true. See what happens when you try to spin a narrative and lump everything in simply due to circumstance? You make yourself look like a raging idiot. Are you a journalist or a fucking talk show host, John?
So first, on Monday, someone set fire to College Hills Seventh-day Adventist Church in Tennessee. They placed bales of hay outside the church doors and lit them ablaze. They also burned the church van. This is not an accident. They purposefully burnt down the church. On Tuesday, God's Power Church of Christ in Georgia was set on fire. Electronics and other equipment were also stolen. Authorities told reporters there is no evidence of a hate crime, though. Just, again, another prominent black church in the South. On Wednesday, Briar Creek Baptist Church in North Carolina was burned down, causing at least $250,000 in damage. Took 75 firefighters to get it under control. Okay, but the church has been destroyed. On Friday, Glover Grove Missionary Baptist Church in South Carolina was also destroyed. The FBI has been called in. Now, no one has been found to be linked to these burnings yet. They are done under the cover of darkness. They are done in one of the most cowardly ways that you can attack a group. Wait until they're all gone, go in the cover of night, and burn down a church.
John, I'm going to explain this to you very slowly. None of the motives have been determined yet. You've explained that to us. In fact, the one where the property was stolen could very well be a burglary cover-up like I discussed earlier. The motives haven't been determined. Now, listen to what you just said. You displayed to us that there is no evidence currently that a hate crime was committed. Yet the title of your video is, Terrorists Burn Down Black Churches Across South. And then said that this is a wave of terror attacks. What is it like in your brain, John? Because it sounds like a whirlwind of bullshit, and whichever piece smacks against your frontal lobe first comes tumbling out of your lips. You are actively saying that there's no evidence for something, and yet you believe it's true. You are willing to tell your audience who come to you for information that it's true, all on the basis of, well, how could it not be?
And you can bet your ass that these one and all, the people doing this, are fucking Christians.
They're fucking Christians? I hope they got married first. Oh my goodness, I had to tell myself that joke because we don't fucking know who set those particular fires yet. But John totally knows, ladies and gentlemen. He has mind-reading powers, didn't you know?
Okay, and they're going in, they're burning down God's Power Church, Glover Grove Missionary Baptist Church, Briar Creek Baptist Church. For some reason, okay, their strong Christian faith is not stopping them from burning down property and potentially killing people who might be inside of those churches at night.
Wow. Those fictional bad guys are really bad, huh?
Now, those are the 4 that have been specifically identified. We have sporadic reports of others that have been burned down. These are the 4 that are being investigated by the FBI right now. Now, as I said, the FBI, let's see, a spokesman said they're being investigated to determine who is responsible and what motives are behind them. I'm not sure there is any reason to link them together at this point. Now, When they say that, what they mean is we can't link them in terms of one group or one individual who is doing all these burnings, and the fact that they are separated by states in some cases over the course of just days implies that it is not just one person. It might not even be one group, but there is something that links them together. It might not be a group, but it is an ideology.
You smug bastard. Look at how your face lit up when you said, but it is an ideology. There are those mind-reading powers I was talking about. His Professor X level telepathy astounds us all. So here's what's happening right now. We don't know who set these fires. We don't know what they look like. We don't know their political affiliations. We don't know what their motives are. We don't know if they're religious or not. We don't know anything about them. None of that. But John is going to sit there and tell you, my audience, and his audience, exactly what the evil men in his head think.
It is an approach to the black culture in America that is rightfully incensed at the killing of 9 of their members just a little while ago by Dylann Roof. They're active. They're getting something out of it. The taking down of these flags. Now, that is not what this community wants. What they want is to be safe to worship without people going in and shooting up their church. What they want is to have the same rights, both in terms of their safety and in terms of their political expression, in terms of voting, all those things that everyone else in this country has. Now, they're not getting that right now. What they're getting is some flags being taken down, which is at least something, I suppose. And in the wake of that single act of terror by Dylann Roof, we now have a string of potential copycats, those who they don't even have the strength, the bravery to face people as they go in and gun them down. They're going in the middle of the night to burn down these churches. Now, as I said, that is what links these together. I don't care if it's the same person. I don't care if it's the same group. It is the same frame of mind that has led to all these churches being burned down.
Stop the investigation, FBI. John knows the motive already. Maybe psychic detectives are real.
And since no one has been caught, there's no reason to believe that this isn't going to continue.
Considering that there's an average of about 1,600 church fires in a year, I wouldn't really be surprised if they keep happening. It's not out of the ordinary. The circumstances of the fires vary, of course. Now, considering we are about halfway through the year, relying completely on averages here, there would have been about 800 church fires already. This is relying completely on averages, so take that with a grain of salt. There could be error regarding when churches generally burn, and maybe more do burn in the summer because of how dry and hot it is in the south. But yeah, not out of the ordinary. It'll probably keep happening because it's happened every year until the present. The only difference is that there's extra sensitivity to these stories around due to the Roof shooting.
Now, we're not going to ignore it. Here on my show, on the Young Turks Network, we're going to be talking about this throughout the week. For some reason, mainstream media can't... Can you imagine if 4 synagogues had been burned down? If 4 white churches had been burned down? Hell, if 4 mosques had been burned down, it would be front page news. It would be everywhere, on every blog. Huffington Post, front page. Now, the Huffington Post is actually talking about it. I don't mean to single them out. But it would be everywhere.
No, it fucking wouldn't. Consider that 1,600 happen every year, and we are hearing about a few of them now in the mainstream media happening to black churches. White churches burn all the time. Black churches burn. Mosques burn. Synagogues burn. There are 1,600 cases of it occurring every year. So when you say, imagine what it would be like if white churches were burning, guess what, pal? They do fucking burn, and hardly anyone says shit about it because it isn't news. Why isn't it news? Because it happens all the fucking time, and nobody cares enough to read the stories anymore. But now, you are going to latch on to any story where a predominantly black church burns and construe it as a hate crime. 16% of that average of intentional fires targeted predominantly black churches. 84% of the burnings happened to predominantly white churches, synagogues, and mosques. No story about those. I don't have to imagine what it would be like because it already happens, although I do long for a day where I could go back to just calling them churches and not have to deal with people like you in my future profession.
Okay? And it would not be one crazy individual who would burn them down, okay? This is an organization, okay? These are perhaps individual cells, but this is white supremacy run amok in 2015 in the American South, and it needs to be stopped. But before it can be stopped, it needs to at least be identified.
Oh my goodness. You really are insane, aren't you? You don't care about the truth. You are no better than a garden variety demagogue, John. Listen to what crawls out of your mouth. You said that it is white supremacy run amok in the South and it needs to be stopped. But first, It has to be identified. Nobody should take you seriously, John. You are a nut job. The evil men in your head are behind it all. You know that they are, and you know their motives. Yet before you can put a stop to those evil men in your head, you first have to identify that they even exist. You've gone from journalist to talk show host to a cable access documentary about paranoid schizophrenia. Have a good day, everyone.